Yo, so I wanted to do a video on anxiety because it's something that hits very close to home for me, and it is something that I've dealt with. I've dealt with depression and anxiety both for my entire adult life, and I feel that I've been able to wrangle it and make it something positive in my life, and I wanted to share my experience with that, and just in case it helps some of my friends or whoever stumbles across these. So really quick background, in my late teens, early 20s, I had my first wave of panic. I had developed a panic disorder. I was having nonstop anticipatory anxiety attacks. Basically, I was panicking about panicking. And it was, without a doubt, probably the greatest challenge I've ever gone through in my life. I didn't want to leave the house. I was afraid to talk to people. I was afraid to do really anything. I mean, just looking at a tree out the window could send me into a panic, and I mean, it was really bad. So with a lot of research, you know, I went to a doctor. I went, you know, and I didn't want to take the regular route of taking meds to kind of repress it. And while, you know, that's a topic for a whole, you know, different day, I'm just sharing what works for me. For me personally, I wanted to learn how to best it, and I wanted to, you know, develop the skill of calming my anxiety, and I didn't want to use medication as, you know, a crutch for that for myself. And I know that's not an option for some people, but for myself, that's what I wanted. And I'm happy that I did that, because where my self-care is oriented is towards, you know, like curing myself or fixing the issue instead of preventing or delaying, and that, yeah, so that's how I felt about that. And so I read my ass off, and I tried to identify as many helpful resources as I could, and really nothing was cutting it. I spent a couple months this way, or much longer, and then, you know, what's scary about the first time that you have anxiety, or the first time you're dealing with it on a massive scale where it sort of displaces you and you're feeling like you're in that dreamlike state and you wonder if you'll ever come back. Yeah, that's the scariest thing about it, is that you wonder if you'll ever come back to normal, if your life will ever be normal again. And that's really hard to deal with. I found this really crappy GeoCities page, I think run by like a Japanese janitor. I mean, this was after like exhausting all of the Google searches about like anxiety management. Like, it was like on the last page of the search returns, and it was this busted ass Japanese GeoCities site with all these animated GIFs and stuff. So I translated it. And it was a janitor who had had an anxiety issue for like 35 years, and he figured out how to beat it. And I still remember this day, it had all these flashing animated GIFs of stop signs all over it. And his idea was stop. Well, he had two ideas. The first one was stop. Stop associating yourself as a person with a problem with anxiety. Stop thinking about anxiety. Stop reading about anxiety. Stop talking about anxiety. Stop. Stop. Okay. Once you realize that you need to chill that out, and you notice that, you know, how much anxiety is a topic in your life, it gets a little interesting. The other part of the remedy was to, as he explained it, not fix something that's broken with something that's broken. So in his opinion, his emotional, you know, context was busted, and it was creating massive discomfort for him. So why would he try to think his way through that emotionally, or you know, that's the only entry point you have. You're not being logical at that point. So in his opinion, you had to force your brain to activate logic, the left side of your brain doing left brain tasks, like math, alphabetizing things, you know, working out and counting, very left oriented tasks. So I said, you know, hey, what have I got to lose? It makes sense to me. I tried it. And over a period of a few weeks, gradually I felt better and better and better. Whenever I got anxious, I would drop and do push-ups and count backwards, or I'd do multiplication while I was doing it. Eventually I found Sudoku, which made things a lot easier. And so even to this day, I keep a Sudoku app on my phone. So if I can't get to where I can do some of the other things that I'm going to talk about in a minute, I at least have that as a quick backup if I'm feeling uncomfortable. So yeah, I mean, after a while, I mean, it's pretty miraculous. It slowly hatched me back into myself. And, you know, the problem wasn't completely, you know, gone, and maybe it never will be. But it made it so I could continue to live my regular and normal, you know, life. So moving forward through the years, and then the next time that I had some anxiety that displaced me, that gave me that feeling that everything was a dream, or I was disconnected from myself, the really scary stuff. The next time I had it, it wasn't as scary because I knew I could get out of it. And I knew that it maybe just would take a little bit of time. So that was helpful. But I also acquired more tricks over the years and more tools. Most notably, pairing, like I said, activating a left brain task with breathing exercises. There's a lot of different breathing exercises you can do, and maybe you have a favorite one. But the point is you want to have a very oxygen-rich system because your brain loves that environment. So for me, I think this is one I picked up from Tony Robbins or something. It's some diaphragmatic breathing exercise where you inhale for a count, you hold that count 4 times longer than it took you to inhale, and then you exhale for 2. So if you're inhaling for 5 seconds, you hold it for 20 seconds, and then you exhale for 10 seconds. So I'll put the formula down, or maybe there's a video somewhere I can link to. I'll put it in the description below. But that technique, I do 10 of those breaths, and by the time I'm through 10 of those breaths, 9 times out of 10, I feel completely better. I just needed to give my system a break, and there's a lot of reasons why that works. And if you don't have a breathing regimen or a breathing technique that's in your arsenal day to day, you should find one because it'll change your life, in my opinion. So I use those 2 things. If I can't get to where I can do a breathing exercise comfortably or meditate, and I'll get to that in a second, then I have the Sudoku, because everybody's sitting there on their phones anyway these days. I can pop up Sudoku and just kind of focus on that if I feel uncomfortable, until I can get to the point where I can comfortably do a breathing exercise somewhere or meditate. The third is meditation, and keeping a daily routine of meditation works wonders for me, completely changed my game. I mean, I don't know, meditation's got a strange kind of like juju atmosphere around it or something, and I don't quite understand it, because there's so much data these days that shows that, you know, adopting a mindfulness practice or a type of mindfulness meditation has so many measurable benefits, and not the least of which is, you know, managing your emotions, managing your nervous system, managing anxiety and depression. And it's had an incredible impact on me. You know, today, for instance, I didn't meditate, and I was super off, and you know, just crabby and weird, and I get in there and I meditate, and I can see everything just needed to kind of get lined up. So there's a lot of great videos on mindfulness meditation. I'm not going to go over that. So check it out, see what works for you. But I do 20 minutes a day, or I try to. Beyond that, as sort of like a layer in my life, I take a look at the kinds of things I'm eating, what I'm doing, making sure I can get in my body sometimes as often as possible. I'm not nearly as active as I'd like to be right now, but that makes a huge, huge difference on your nervous system's, you know, health profile, being active, and then what you eat and what you're consuming. A lot of people don't realize how much they are trashing their whole everything by ingesting sugar all day long. There's a million videos on that, and you can choose to believe it or not, but I think more and more we're headed towards finally the acceptance of the fact that sugar is a poisonous, you know, processed sugar is a poisonous, super awful thing, and it wreaks havoc on people with that already have certain, you know, chemical imbalances, and myself included. I mean, it's like night and day for me personally, because I have, like, the nervous system of like a schizophrenic squirrel or something. I'm just really, really sensitive. And if I eat a bunch of sugar, man, it's night and day. So I keep a general maintenance with what I eat and what I ingest, and I journal nearly every day, and I keep track of if I drink, because that'll fry your nervous system, because that's a bunch of sugar usually, and alcohol, which is processed like sugar, I think. And, if I drink, if I binge eat a bunch of crap, if I keep track of extremes, and there's always correlative evidence that it disrupts my emotional state. And a lot of people aren't keeping track because you're busy with life and you're going through life and you don't realize how you're eating is impacting your mood and affecting your life so heavily. So that is a big deal. So getting a little bit of exercise and making sure you're not ingesting a bunch of poison, it's kind of important. And not only is it important for you to live and feel as healthy as you can, but it really helps with depression and anxiety. So that's sort of the proximity, on the outside, kind of keeping a general maintenance, getting enough sleep, making sure I'm avoiding sugar at as often as I possibly can, even though there's some donuts out here in Thailand that I found that are like really, really testing me. And, that's it's called Mr. Donut. It's from Japan. I'm sorry. If you go there, not many, everybody's in Japan. Anyway, but so keep a general pattern of wellness and well-being for yourself in there. That's physical. In there, have a mental wellness regimen where you're meditating and you're taking care of yourself there. And then in there, have a breathing system. Something that enables your body to be in an oxygen-rich environment. And then within there, have the tools, the hands-on capability to really address that, like the activating, more left brain activity when something hits the fan. So just give yourself a toolkit, man, and also remember that emotions are coloring the past and the future. A lot of times when we feel really terrible, we don't realize that things are tinting our whole vision of everything, and it can feel really hopeless and really messed up. But just know that you're off. Be able to identify, if I think about 3 or 4 things and I think that, there's something wrong with all of those things in my life, that's a signal to me, something's up. And then notice that your body always feels a certain way when something's up. So start to look for clues that you've been compromised, because that's a way to look at it. I'm compromised when I'm in that state. And then just break out your toolkit and go through. I hope this helps somebody, and it has helped me a lot. And I think that's about it for today. If you want to talk about anything, you got any questions, pop it in the comments, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.